I Am God's Equal by Nick Gisburne. It was evening, and the sun was beginning to set, when two Christians came to my door, two smiling, happy Christians. And these two Christians told me they wanted to talk to me about God. They told me that God is all-loving and all-powerful, that He made everything and everyone. They assured me, they promised me, that God can do anything, anything at all. So I thought about that for a while, and then I said, so can I. The Christians gave me puzzled looks when they heard this, as if I was suggesting that I could do anything their God could do. Obviously that's not what you meant to say, they suggested. I shook my head. You're wrong, I said. That's exactly what I meant to say. I can do anything your God can do. Anything at all. I am God's equal. It was difficult to know if they were amused or offended, or just plain old confused. But the smiles they'd had when they arrived weren't quite so wide now, not quite so turned up at the corners. You can't do all the things that God can do, one of them said scornfully. Only God is that powerful. You're not God. No, I agreed. I'm not God. But I am God's equal. And I can prove it to you. Would you like me to do that? The two Christians took a step back. But in case you're wondering, it wasn't my godlike powers which made them do it. Test me, I said. Give me three things your God can do. And if I can't do them, that will prove that I'm not God's equal. I smiled. Does that seem fair? The two Christians looked at each other. From their expressions, it was clear that this was a claim they'd never heard before. But they knew that I was lying. They knew that their God was far, far more powerful than me. And when I failed to show otherwise, they'd prove their point. They'd prove that I was no match for God. They'd prove that I was not God's equal. 3 things, one of them asked. 3 things, I said, nodding. Anything you like, anything at all. I pointed to one of them. He was holding a Bible tightly in his hand, his fingers pressing down into the worn black leather. Would you like to go first? He nodded, and he thought. After a minute he was still thinking, and I was almost ready to suggest that his friend could perhaps come up with the first test instead. But suddenly his head lifted from deep concentration, and he looked at me confidently and said, "Make it rain." I looked up. It was a cool evening, and there were clouds in the sky. But it didn't feel like it was going to rain, not right there and then. That would have been a nice little coincidence, but not a very convincing demonstration. I pointed that out to the man, and suggested something a little more persuasive. "What if I make the rain pink?" I offered. The Christian with the Bible frowned. "Pink rain," he said. "Who ever heard of pink rain?" "Exactly," I said. "Pink rain it is, then. So you want me to produce pink rain from the sky?" "Yes," he said. I shrugged. "No problem. I can do that." They both took another step back, disconcerted. I pointed out that if they moved any further back, they were liable to get very wet from all the pink rain falling on their heads. The second Christian was angry now. "You're just wasting our time. You know and I know that you can't make it rain. Go on, do it if you're so clever." I smiled, trying to look as cheerful as the Christians had looked when I'd answered the door. "I'm not trying to waste your time. I'm just trying to prove that I'm God's equal. You want me to produce pink rain, and I've told you I can do that." "So do it," he persisted. "All in good time," I assured him. "First let's find out what the other 2 tests are, shall we? After all, if I make it rain now, and then you ask me to do something else that I can't do, that really would have been a waste of time, wouldn't it?" He agreed, reluctantly, but pressed ahead with his challenge. The Bible tells us that God formed man from the dust of the ground. Only God can create life. No man could do that. "I can," I corrected him. "I can create a man from dust. To be honest, I don't really need the dust at all. I can create life from nothing. Let's make it 2, a man and a woman, both at the same time. And I should probably give them umbrellas to keep off the rain," I added. The second Christian pointed a shaking finger at me. "A faithful witness will not lie. but a false witness will utter lies. Proverbs 14, verse 5, I recalled. But don't forget verse 18. The simple inherit folly, but the prudent are crowned with knowledge. The man's eyes narrowed, and he curled his finger so that now his raised hand was making a fist. It was obvious that his annoyance was turning quickly into rage, so I did my best to calm him again. One more test. Just one more, and that's it. If you're so sure I can't do these things, just give me one more, and it will all be over. The man with the Bible touched the arm of his friend, who was now visibly shaking, and whispered in his ear. They both turned away, and there was a furious exchange of words. It was clear that they could not decide if they should walk away, or if, as I suspected, straightforward human curiosity would get the better of them. They turned again to face me, straightforward, human, and curious. The first of the two, the one holding the Bible, said, "I'm sorry for the reaction of my friend here. His wife passed away only last month, and his faith has been tested many times since then. These so-called tests of yours are unusual, to say the least. Neither of us is sure how to react to what you say." I nodded and looked at the second man. There were tears in his eyes, which he struggled to hold back. "I'm sorry for your loss," I said, and I meant it. He looked down and whispered something. When it seemed obvious that I hadn't heard, he said, with some difficulty, "Bring her back." I looked to the Bible-holding Christian for confirmation. "That is your third test," he sighed, sadly. My smile had faded, but these were their terms. They wanted me to continue. So I did. "I can do it," I said quietly. "I can bring back your wife." They both looked at me incredulously, wondering why I was continuing with this cruel pretense, why I would still lay claim to be God's equal. Calmly I said, "I can do all of these things." I paused, and then, "But I choose not to do so." The second of the two men leered at me, his face a mask of triumph and anger, the clenched fist with its accusing finger raised again. "See, see, only God can work such miracles. Liar, worthless liar!" I allowed him this outpouring of rage, but in the silence following his outburst I was insistent. "I can make it rain. I can create life. I can resurrect the dead." Then, pointing at the black, leather-bound Bible, I said, "Can your God do all of these things?" The two men cried out in angry unison, "Of course he can!" "Then let him show me," I said. "I'm waiting. Let him show me now." There was an odd moment of silence, as a look of incomprehension passed between the two Christians. "I've told you that I'm God's equal," I said. "You've given me 3 tasks, and I've told you that I can do those tasks. In return, you've told me that God can also do the same tasks. If both sides make identical claims, it's my understanding that this makes us equal." "But you haven't done any of them," the second man fumed. "These are lies, not miracles." The first Christian joined in. "This is not proof that you're God's equal. Where's the rain? Where's the new life created from nothing? You've only said you can do these things. Show us." "Oh, that won't be necessary," I said. "It's obvious to me that your God is not prepared to perform these miracles for you, and equally, neither am I. So we are indeed equal. God and I are equal in our ability to provide proof to meet your standards. We both make claims, we both make promises, and we are both equally unwilling to fulfill any of them. In all respects, I am, without any doubt, God's equal." As the two Christians looked at me with blank expressions, I stepped inside the house and closed the door. Through the window, I watched until the two men reached the end of the driveway. As they turned into the street, under the pale, red, sunset sky, a sky which some might even describe as something close to a shade of pink, there came the first thin, gentle, but unmistakable drops of rain.